Our service today is entitled Coming Home to Our Bodies. It is in 3 parts. The first part is called Embodiment. In The Power of Myth, television journalist Bill Moyers recalled one of Joseph Campbell's favorite stories. In Japan, for an international conference on religion, Joseph Campbell overheard another American delegate, a social philosopher from New York, say to a Shinto priest, "We've been now to a good many ceremonies and have seen quite a few of your shrines, but I don't get your ideology. I don't get your theology." The Japanese priest paused as though in deep thought, and then slowly shook his head. I think we don't have ideology," he said. "We don't have theology. We dance."
Once when I sang, a little girl got up to dance, lost in her limbs, deeper and deeper in trance. Slowly the world disappeared, till her twirling was all I could see. And so I sang for her, and she danced, and in that one holy moment she was free. Nothing to measure, nothing to win, only the pleasure of feeling the kiss of the sun on her skin. And as the world disappeared, her twirling was all I could see. And as she danced, I sang, and in that one holy moment, we were free. Nothing to cling to, nothing to lose. There with the breath of creation, our light-footed partner and muse. Suddenly time fell away, till forever was all we could feel. And so I sang, and she danced, and in that one holy moment we were real. Nothing to bind us to future or past. One timeless moment was ours, when memories and dreams were surpassed. And then the world reappeared, and she turned and she ran off to play. And with her gone, I sang on, grateful for one holy moment, holy day. Grateful for one holy moment, holy day. The experience of embodiment, of being fully present in our bodies, is characteristically integrative. For the little girl in the dance, and for me singing, there was an experience of timelessness, which may be the closest thing we ever get to experiencing eternity. That young dancer happened to have been adopted from a Russian orphanage at about the age 4. This was perhaps a year into her having lived in the United States with her adopted family. She was nonverbal, but her body knew exactly how to be itself and how to express itself. There was no performance at all in her dance, just a spontaneous, embodied response to the music and perhaps to whatever else she was experiencing. How long has it been since you had that sort of experience? Can you conjure it from memory, from your body memory? Certainly we've all witnessed it, even if we haven't all experienced it ourselves, in the ways that some children move before they're taught how they should move. And who is it that teaches us how we should move anyway? Well, our families, of course, but also our wider cultures. I remember a young person who sang in the children's choir at a largely white congregation I served. This child experienced and embodied the music in her whole body, not just her breath and her voice, and I found it moving to actually see the music in her body as she sang, in addition to hearing it. And I was dismayed to hear the choir director urging her to stand still while singing, to restrain her body rather than letting it and letting all of her embody the music. And what about children who learn best when they're in motion, but are expected to sit still in school? Is it not possible that some complex equations and thorny problems work themselves out not in the mind, but through the body when the body is in motion? And OMG. As a teenager, I was required to attend a weekly 3-hour meeting of a club for young women, which most likely meant young white women, though I don't remember for sure. That club had the express goal of teaching young women to be able club women and better citizens. And some of what we did there, like learning parliamentary procedure, actually supported those particular goals. But there was one section of our meetings that focused on how we moved our bodies, how to get in and out of a car in a ladylike fashion, seating ourselves first and then with our knees together, swinging our feet onto the floor in front of our seats. How to sit with our knees together and just so, and to tuck our feet, ankles crossed neatly in a slight angle beneath us. Hands resting, palms up like this, one inside the other on our laps. As if young women had no need of strong legs and fast feet to carry them toward their goals or away from the roving hands of men. As if we never needed our hands to express ourselves, to create, or to push away unwanted advances toward the sexuality we had been taught so carefully to hide by our so-called appropriate postures and behaviors. As if our sexuality and our very wombs were not the locus of life itself. Did you happen to see the halftime show at the Super Bowl 2020 with Shakira and Jennifer Lopez dancing? I confess I'm not particularly interested in football, so I missed it. But afterwards, I read that many white people had been offended by the halftime show. So naturally, I had to watch it. And I read commentary on it by white people and by people of color. And this is what I came away with. White culture teaches white people, and especially women, to cover and subdue our bodies, to master them, and to downplay our sexuality, and it teaches us that this is normative. And not only normative, but the proper way to be. Many other cultures celebrate the body. They revel in it, welcoming its full expression, including sexual expression. For J-Lo and Shakira, their halftime show was an embodiment of their cultures and a celebration of bodies, of their bodies. Would that we could all find such freedom.
Part 2 of our service is called Reclaiming Our Bodies. The reading is from Exile and Pride by Eli Clare. In his profound memoir on disability, queerness, and liberation, titled Exile and Pride, author Eli Clare writes, "Home starts here in my body, in all that lies embedded beneath my skin. The body as home, but only if it is understood that bodies are never singular, but rather haunted, strengthened, underscored by countless other bodies. The body as home, but only if it is understood that place and community and culture burrow deep into our bones. The body as home, but only if it is understood that language too lives under the skin. The body as home, but only if it is understood that bodies can be stolen, fed lies and poison, torn away from us. The body as home, but only if it is understood that the stolen body can be reclaimed.
If you're not there when I need you, part of me lays down and dies. But if you are gentle and loving with me, you may help something strong in me rise. You may help something strong in me rise. And if I felt sad when they hurt me, disappointed when they let me down, well, I might have known it, but I would not have shown it, 'cause a smile was required to keep them around. So I smiled through the fear when they hit me or battered each other in rage. My knuckles went white and my jaw was clenched tight round the fear that I dared not engage, and I grew hard to soften the blow. Thought I could cushion the fall. When the pain was too great, I hid and I ate, or I slammed my soft body hard at the wall, or pounded my fists on my head to silence the voices that wished I were dead. For many years, self-righteous indignation was the weapon that I wielded to defend myself from fear, like a porcupine begging for attention, while making certain no one could get near. Now I long to lay my armor down and weep, but my mind's a restless warrior, still looking for the danger, and I'm not at rest, not even when I sleep. It's a very old habit I'm trying to break, this killing what rises within me. But I know it's my own precious life that's at stake. And if I don't kill me, I'll win me. If I don't kill me, I'll win me. So if I can be there when I need me to witness my own inner cries, if I can be gentle and kind with myself, I may help something strong in me rise. I may help something strong in me rise. I may help something strong in me, strength that belongs in me, help something strong in me rise. I may help something strong in me rise. In this month when your congregation and mine are focused on story, at least I think that's right, I thought I would just share some of the process for me that storytelling was in my own life several years ago, several decades ago now actually, when I was struggling with depression. I was in therapy for about 4.5 years, and songwriting became one of the tools through which I processed my own stories, and not only processed them, but shared them. And certainly storytelling is a means of processing and of healing from our pain. And so I share these songs with you in that spirit, and in the spirit of what it means to be in our bodies. Our bodies remember. Our bodies remember so many things, and some of them are lovely. Each time there's an onshore breeze and I step out onto the deck of my home on Whidbey Island, I am transported to the deck of my grandmother's trailer in Southern California, which was located just about the same distance from the Pacific Ocean as our home is from Puget Sound. My body remembers this. A friend of mine who was raised in an industrial area spoke recently of the way the sound of the gravel pit near her current home on Whidbey Island reminds her of the sounds of her childhood. Her body remembers. But of course, we know it's not only pleasant things the body remembers. It's also pain and trauma. PTSD is well known and wreaks havoc in many lives. Adverse childhood events seem to contribute to many illnesses, lifelong. And the field of epigenetics suggests what people of color have long intuited, that the physiological effects of trauma, the effects on the body of trauma, can be passed down through generations of bodies. In his recent memoir titled My Grandmother's Hands, psychologist and author Resmaa Menakem explores how racial trauma affects generations of bodies, including white bodies. And Resmaa Menakem suggests that healing must come through the body rather than simply through the mind. We cannot think our way to wholeness. Our bodies remember. Amanda read a passage a few moments ago from Eli Clare, a trans man, genderqueer, who lives with disability. Eli Clare survived childhood emotional and sexual abuse at a level that he names torture, in a community and a culture that did not allow him expression of his gender identity or sexual orientation. For someone with those experiences, any of those experiences, let alone all of them together, the relationship to the body can be extraordinarily complex. Clare writes about striving to be what he refers to as a super crip, meaning a person with a disability who pushes past the apparent limitations of their body. Clare describes how when people with disabilities do perfectly ordinary things such as dating, the surprise and kudos from temporarily able-bodied people around them make it clear that those temporarily able-bodied people see them first and foremost as disabled and only secondarily as human. What? You're dating? Imagine how that lands in a body. I've recently watched a TV series called Pose about the lives of Black and brown gay men and trans women during the AIDS crisis and the culture they developed to affirm and celebrate their humanity, their bodies, and their love in all of its forms in the midst of a wider culture that abused and used them. What does it mean for a young gay Black man to be slapped and verbally abused and literally, physically thrown out of his home, out of his parents' home because he loves to dance? How and where does a young person in that situation come home to their body? Watch the series if you can. It's called Pose, P-O-S-E. It's incredibly moving. It's also quite hopeful in that it shares the resilience of people who might be tempted to lay down and die, but who decide instead to develop what they need to, in their own communities, to thrive. And what might it mean for each of you to come home to your body? What loss or grief or trauma does your body carry from your own life or from generations of your people? What would it be like to let your body lead you into and through that and right into freedom and joy, not once and for all, but time and time again, creating new body memories that set you free?
Part 3 of our service is called A Home for the Spirit. Theater director, dance teacher, and explorer and recording artist Gabrielle Roth intuited that 5 rhythms underlie all of life, and she developed this intuition into a movement practice to liberate the soul. This practice has been shared and taught across much of the Western world. These excerpts are from her book, Sweat Your Prayers. Think of your body as a begging bowl for spirit. When spirit is removed from the body, it is no longer inspired. And since spirit is the catalyst that keeps all things moving, the body without it falls into a deep state of inertia. Emotions no longer move fluidly, neither do thoughts or muscles. Everything is constipated. In this space of stuck, nothing flows together or moves in harmony. The body feels separate from the heart from the mind from the body. Indeed, you often think one thing, feel another, and do a third, living in a state of perpetual contradiction. No wonder we're confused. No wonder we're in pain. Our soul is homeless, and we can't just cross to the other side of the street and ignore it. It is the essence of who we are, and to be separated from it is our deepest wound. Until we heal this primal wound and reclaim our soul, All our everyday hurts will seem big, and our big hurts will feel insurmountable. The soul is that part of us that can relieve our pain by transforming it into wisdom. We can retrieve our souls through our bodies, not in spite of our bodies or instead of our bodies, but through the very flesh that defines our presence on this plane of reality. Mine is a dancing path. My Bible is the body because the body can't lie. My master is rhythm. There is no dogma in the dance. When you let your body dance, you immediately strip away the lies and the dogma until all you're left with is the spirit of life itself. Movement is medicine. And I trust that if you put the psyche in motion, it will heal itself.
One Saturday night I was dancing alone in a room full of people, a dance of my own. I got out of a taxi the very next day, and a radiant woman came walking my way, and she said, "Last night I danced with you. You didn't see me, but I danced with you. In your bright tie-dyed shirt and incredible pace, you were dancing and twirling all over the place. And your eyes, they were closed. I saw God in your face, and your bliss drew me to you. The joy that shone through you, your bliss drew me to you. Your ecstasy, your eyes, they were closed. I saw God in your face, and your bliss drew me to you. The joy that shone through you, your bliss drew me to you. Your ecstasy." When I called you weeks later, choking back tears, the bliss was long gone, consumed by my fears. And you said, "Don't talk round what you're feeling inside. I'm listening, Emmy, you don't need to hide." And I heard what you said, and my heart opened wide. And I took what you offered, and I cried and I cried. I wept with a sadness for too long denied, 'cause your warmth drew me to you, the love that shone through you. Your warmth drew me to you, Bonnie. I wept with a sadness for too long denied, 'cause your warmth drew me to you, the love that shone through you. Your warmth drew me to you, Bonnie. Now I'm thinking of you and the sadness you feel. You're going through changes and trying to heal. I would love to give back what you've given to me, a comforting presence, peppermint tea, or a song or a dance for the sadness you feel. If you let it flow through you, the dance can renew you and bring you back home to yourself. For when sadness flows through us, the bliss can come to us and bring us back home to ourselves. We'll let sadness flow through us so bliss can renew us and bring us back home to ourselves. It will bring us back home 25 years or so ago, I found in Gabrielle Roth's 5 Rhythms practice a way to come home to my body. A body that had been trained to do a lot of things, from sitting properly as a child to knowing how to play to an audience when I performed, which I began doing at the age of 7. A body that had sometimes been a beloved and revered temple of my soul, and other times an object of abuse, shame, and self-loathing. Coming home to my body meant that there was finally room for all of who I am, the grief and the loss, the joy and the wonder. It wasn't as simple as showing up occasionally. After all, a spiritual practice is a practice, not an achievement. And neither dancing nor my other spiritual practices have prevented me from experiencing illness. But they have helped me to heal emotionally, spiritually, and to the extent possible, physically, through depression, through the debilitating pain of psoriatic arthritis, and nearly a year ago, through the emotions that accompanied my diagnosis of endometrial cancer and the loss of my womb, the generative, life-giving center of my body and my creativity, and from the surgery that removed both my womb and the cancer. Among other things, my spouse and I created a ritual to name what we were losing, and then exploring and releasing the difficult emotions that had found a home in that cancer in my uterus, and to name the longings and commitments we wish to carry forward after the surgery. In that way, even in its removal, even in its loss, my womb was life-giving. I could have done it differently, of course. I could have repressed the grief and loss, since after all I'm well past childbearing, and I knew going into the surgery that the likely outcome was that all the cancer would be removed surgically, and indeed that's exactly what happened. I could have treated this like a minor inconvenience, just something to get done, but I knew there was something more bound up in that tumor and in the loss of my womb. I knew my body was leading me into a place I needed to go for my own healing. That's one really important thing about spiritual practices. They help us to stop abandoning ourselves, whatever comes. At the same time, they strip us of our illusions that we are in charge, in control, and help us to find peace in being attentive to what is. Certainly, they do not always lead us to bliss, not in the short run and not in the end. Indeed, sometimes I can't find my rhythm or my song despite showing up, and oftentimes I can't be bothered to show up at all. But because of that experience, now 20 to 25 years ago, of following my body into the dance very regularly, my body remembers that place, and it knows itself at home whenever I tap into it. May each one of us find our way home to our bodies. Amen.